Wondering what Broadway shows to see as the spring season gets into gear? Our opinionated and discerning panel of experts weigh in on their choices. Hello, I'm Patrick Pacheco. Welcome to Theater All the Moving Parts. The upcoming Broadway spring season is jam-packed, and here to help us wade through it all are critics Jackson McHenry of New York Magazine's Vulture and Adam Feldman of Time Out New York. Also, Jan Simpson, theater journalist and host of Broadway Radio's All the Drama. Welcome back, Jan and Adam, and welcome, Jackson, to Theater All the Moving Parts. We're very happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
New kid on the block. That's exciting.
Well, we've got a lot to cover. There are 9 new musicals coming into the spring season, joining the 5 that have already opened in the fall. That's 14 altogether that will have opened by the time the Tony deadline on April 27th. So let's start right in with Redwood, which has a lot of Tina Landau in it. Tina Landau is the director. She conceived it with Idina Menzel. She wrote the book for it. She's the co-lyricist for it with composer Kate Diaz, who wrote the songs. What do we know about it? It was done at the La Jolla Playhouse previously. Did anybody see it?
I mean, someone saw it, but
Not us.
It got fairly respectful reviews. And I think Idina Menzel is sort of the headliner here. How does it look to you, Jen?
Well, it sounds like that old Reese Witherspoon movie, Wild, about a woman who goes out into the wilderness and finds herself. I'm curious about it, and I give Idina Menzel credit for trying new things. She doesn't come back in revivals or sort of, tried and true things. She's out there experimenting, so I'm interested.
Been inspired by real-life story of Julia Butterfly Hill, a 23-year-old who lived up a tree. As a protest, a civil disobedience to keep from clear-cutting the redwoods where the show is set.
But this also sounds like a woman who's having sort of a midlife crisis, not as that woman was who was young and who's trying to find herself and maybe finds herself up a tree. It's supposed to be the new big word, immersive. So we'll see what that
You're talking about the technological aspects of it, which got rave notices.
well, I think Tina Landau is a terrific director and very imaginative. So I think that's for me the main attraction here. Although I do love Idina Menzel, and I like that she's taken the bull by the horns and sort of co-imagined and co-created a project for herself that is suitable to her. This season seems to have different levels of musical, very, very large-scale ones and very small ones. This looks to be a quite intimate show with only a few performers, and there are a few others like that.
Jan, as you said, it is about her midlife crisis. She has been grieving the death of her son. She's part of a lesbian couple, and they're both grieving in different ways. And she takes this cross-country ride and ends up in the Eureka, California forest. Jackson, what aspect of the musical appeals to you?
I'm very curious about the staging of it. I mean, Tina Landau, she did the SpongeBob musical, which I thought was brilliant, and sort of the use of space.
So underrated.
And
that
so
show.
underrated. And I think this, and from what I understand, and sort of even like the press invitation, they were like, the mezzanine might have the best view. We're going up and down. She's going to be in the redwoods somehow. And so I'm very curious how that's executed with the music and sort of how it's all playing together. It sounds like a sort of poppy score, and I'm curious how it will all sort of meld with the sort of Earth discovery, environmental aspect of that.
Well, the message of civil disobedience probably strikes a resonant chord given the times that we're living in. for sure. Going on to the next musical, that's Buena Vista Social Club. And I remember being totally delighted in 1996 when Nick Gold and Ry Cooder brought these Cuban musicians together who had been shining shoes. They had long been forgotten. They were shining shoes in menial jobs all over Havana. Brought them together for one last burst of glory that they just wrote to a beautiful documentary about them, to a Grammy-winning recorded album, and also to a night at Carnegie Hall. And now there is this musical. It was at the Atlantic Theater Company. Who saw it? All three. Okay. Let's hear your opinion of it.
Well, I loved it at the Atlantic. I think that this project had the right idea about the material because the music really is the attraction, and it always has been. That album in the 90s, if you were alive in the 90s, there's no way you didn't hear it anywhere you went. It was in every cafe, every store, every coffee shop. So it's familiar, but it's been long enough now that it feels fresh again, and it's performed live by a fantastic musical ensemble with beautiful arrangements, and they've added another dimension to it, which is there's a lot of, I thought, absolutely first-rate dance material
The
in it
dancing
as well.
great.
So the story is kind of a architecture to hang the music on because they're doing the original songs and they're doing them as Cuban songs. So they're in Spanish and they're not plot related for the most part. So there's a framework of narrative around it involving a lot of flashbacks and that sort of thing. And that's all perfectly well and good, but the attraction is the music and the dancing.
Patricia Delgado is choreographed along with Justin Peck. What was your opinion of the show?
Yeah, I agree. I remember, part of the book is, it's always the book that you're criticizing in a musical, I guess, sometimes, but it is a fairly standard sort of set of characters built around the Cuban Revolution. And so I'm curious, especially also, the Atlantic is such a small space, to see how the choreography and how the setting will expand on a bigger stage and how they'll fill it out more and sort of how they'll hopefully give a little bit more depth to the sort of characters and stories. But you get into the songs and you're like, this is great, this is fun, this is a party.
I liked the book.
I liked it too.
That's by, I think, by Marco Ramirez.
Yeah, I liked the book, and I thought it was very smartly done because it allows the music to be the music. It's not one of those musicals that some people don't like where they're just breaking out singing. The music is incorporated. These are musicians who are playing, and so it makes sense. And the music is really kind of hard to resist.
Also, Natalie Venetia Belkin, who plays the main vocalist in the recreated Social Club. It's so interesting to see her in this part because to me she was best known for playing Gary Coleman in the original Avenue Q. She could not, that part could not be more different from this one. And
She plays the rather temperamental, right?
Yes.
The temperamental sort
Sister,
of
yeah.
diva, so to speak. In terms of it, do you think that the fact that they are not translating or subtitling the Spanish lyrics to the songs might be off-putting?
No,
to
because it's not
non-Spanish
meant to be
speakers?
translated. It's not about the lyrical content. I mean, as you're saying, there are musicals in which people express themselves through song, and that's best when the songs are written for them. When you have jukebox material, it can be an awkward fit. And this material is not at all meant to be dramatic. It's repetitive, it's vague. Lyrically, it's just, it's there to serve the beat and the sound of it, and it does so extremely well in Spanish. It would be foolish to translate it and foolish to try to associate it with the plot.
Jackson, Operation Mincemeat is coming to Broadway with a big head of steam from London. It was created by this theater collective called Split Lips, and 5 actors play 50 different characters in this fascinating story. It was first a book, and then it was a 2022 film that starred Colin Firth. It won the Olivier as well as for Best Musical, as well as a host of other awards.
And the Olivier goes to Operation Mincemeat!
Well, I saw it. I saw it in
Oh, you saw
London last summer, and I really enjoyed it. But it is very, very British in terms of its humor, in terms of its conception. It's making fun of the posh men at the MI5, and they're sort of taking on roles and sending them up. And so I'm very curious how much the humor, how much the thing translates to America. We've had recent shows from London come here and just not really meet the same level of adulation that
Is
they
it
had.
kind of a musical, the play that goes wrong? I mean,
Not
that kind of humor?
A little bit in that vein. It's sort of kind of broad. It's a lot of, they're putting on different hats and things and things. But
39 steps.
39 steps kind of style.
Yeah.
But there's a song in the second act that is very earnest that they have a character kind of come in and do. And there are moments where they're grounding it in, because it's a whole plot about finding a dead body and giving the dead body fake papers to try to fool the Nazis into thinking that they're making troop movements they aren't, to try to sort of build a distraction.
Based on a true story.
Based on a true story.
Yes, they were able to divert
Yeah.
100,000 Axis powers soldiers from Sicily to Greece on the basis of this person who had died, just a street person in London.
Yes.
I found the movie very moving.
Yeah.
Because this person who was like this total non-person now is hailed as a hero because he was absolutely crucial after death.
Yes.
In terms of this major event in World War II.
Yeah, and the show sort of has to balance the farce of this sort of completely silly idea that somehow worked and the reality of you're taking this person's body, you're putting it to use.
A
you're
lot
just
of
like,
dead
there's
bodies
a
going
lot
to
of
be
dead
on
bodies.
Broadway this season.
Sort of Blitzkrieg at Bernie's.
Exactly.
Does it make that switch, Jackson, from being this farce to this moving moment that they want it to be?
It was effective to me. I found it very moving. It's going to have to figure out if the references will translate, if the kind of sense of, we're making fun of Oxbridge characters in the MI5, like, is that something that Americans will immediately get? Or will we just sort of fawn over it as Anglophiles and be like, this is wonderful? That can also happen.
We'll actually see. And we'll also see how successful Boop, the musical, is. Based on the cartoon character created in 1930, actually, by Max Fleischmann, is coming. It was in Chicago and got pretty good reviews. And Chris Jones of the Chicago Tribune raved about Jasmine Amy Rogers, who stars as Boop. What's sort of fascinating is her origin story at first included Helen Kane, a 1920s actor or actress.
I wanna be loved by you, just you and nobody else but you. I wanna be loved by you. Boop, boop, ba-doop, boop.
But also drew from Black culture. Were you familiar with that, Jan? The fact that Betty Boop had been inspired by Black culture and
No, I wasn't, but I was always a Betty Boop fan. She was my favorite when I was a kid.
Why?
I loved Betty Boop.
Why?
The boop boop beep boop.
And you'll always be in style. Boop, boop, be-doop.
I loved that. I loved Betty Boop, and she was cute and flirtatious. I was just surprised that anyone under 50 knows Betty Boop.
But
So,
you,
it's a
were
little
you
bit-
aware
little
of
bit.
her?
Yeah, I was
And
aware
were you aware of
Betty
it?
Boop.
I'm aware of it.
Sure.
I mean, I think
She
it's
has
a
a look.
similar challenge to the Barbie movie of, this is not something who is so of the moment, but it is, and from what I
Kids
understand, a
still
similar
have
plot.
Barbie dolls.
They still have-
They don't have Betty Boop dolls. They will,
They have Betty
I'm
Boop
sure,
shirts.
but they
Betty
don't.
Boop.
They don't yet. I think what's interesting to me again is the staging that they're talking about, where it's going to go from black and white to color. It's going to be directed by Jerry Mitchell, who we
Directed
know
and
does
choreographed.
not direct small. So
Yeah.
it's going to be like big and exuberant. And so could be a fun show.
With songs by David Foster and lyrics by Susan Birkin.
Right, so it has a really good creative team, or at least a team with a really good track record. So Foster obviously has written a lot of very big pop songs. Susan Birkenhead wrote the lyrics for Jelly's Last Jam, which we got to rediscover at Encores last year, a couple of years ago, which I think she did a terrific job with. And Bob Martin, who wrote the book for Drowsy Chaperone, co-wrote, played the man in the chair, is a very smart, very funny guy. And so I suspect that it will have sort of a more ambitious sensibility than the material it might immediately suggest.
As you mentioned, Jan, it does start, I believe it starts in the 1930s when she was created, and then through a time machine is transported to New York
That's the
City.
Barbie connection.
2023. And then she gets involved in all sorts of different escapades. But it may create a renaissance for her, the show, if it's successful. I'm sure that it will. Somebody that doesn't need any kind of renaissance whatsoever is Stephen Sondheim.
I'm sorry, who?
Oh, sorry. Was that a new
I don't. This
dim memory for you?
Stephen Sondheim?
How soon you forget. How soon you forget. I suppose is welcome with this show. Stephen Sondheim, Old Friends, which again had been done in London.
Yeah.
And it was done in London with this cast. I mean, at least the two leads.
Some of the others as well. They're importing about half of the cast.
Right,
The
with
leads
Bernadette
being
Peters and
Leah Salonga,
Leah Salonga, directed and staged by Matthew Bourne and Julia Mackenzie, who had been involved with previous
Side by Sondheim.
Side by Sondheim, and putting it together. So I can't hardly wait for this one.
Well, I guess you can't have a season without Sondheim. This will satisfy, be a little fix for the people who can't do without Sondheim. I don't expect it to be a big show, but it will have its audience. And these two women have their followers, so people will come out to them.
And certainly Bernadette Peters is absolutely a Sondheim veteran, one of the foremost interpreters of
people will come
Sondheim. It'll be interesting to see how they choose the material, because there's just so much to choose from, and everybody has their favorites. This would not work if it didn't include what songs?
I think if it didn't include the song Old Friends, because people would be very confused.
I mean, I feel like I've seen the press stills of Bernadette doing "You Gotta Get a Gimmick" with her trumpet and everything. A lot of it's things I imagine if you've seen her concerts, you will be disappointed if she's not doing some of or "Send in the Clowns" or that kind of thing.
Well, and it's also because each song is a 3-act play, and if they don't do "Loving You" from Passion, I would be disappointed. Because at 1 minute and 45 seconds, that song is worth other full Broadway musicals, in my opinion. Next up is Smash. Did everybody see the television show that this is based on? And
Multiple times over.
Several times over, Jackson?
I think in the pandemic, yes.
Is that right? Were you a fan?
Comfort. I was a fan in the way that people are fans of Smash, in which you are a fan of all of its messiness as well as its successes. There's a lot going on in the television show, even behind the scenes, that is fun to break down and analyze. So. From what I understand, they've revised a ton of it in terms of it's still the premise of people working on a show about Marilyn Monroe with a sort of Broadway standard actress and a newcomer vying for the part, the Karen and Ivy characters, but it sort of goes off, at least from what I understand from people who saw the open workshops they did about a year ago, in sort of new, complicated, twisty meta directions as they're trying to get the act together.
Yeah, I
Because
think those two characters are still in it. I looked at a quick breakdown
Yeah.
of the show, and it doesn't look like any of the other characters from the movie
Yeah.
are in it. Although Krista Rodriguez, who was in, not the movie, the TV show.
Yeah.
If Krista Rodriguez, who was in the TV show, is also in this, but I don't think she's playing the same
I
character.
think she's playing like the Deborah Messing part, or
Yeah.
the sort of one of the songwriter parts.
This has such a good supporting cast, though. That's one of the things. This is a very Broadway insider-y kind of show. Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman are doing, who did Hairspray and Something Like It Hot, are doing the score, and it stars. Well, appropriately, it stars a sort of a trooper type, Robin Herder as Ivy, and a newcomer type, Carolyn Bowman. Although she's not that new, but she's different. They work in that way. But then the supporting cast, in addition to Kristen, you've got Christine Nielsen, you've got Brooks Ashmanskas, you've got John Bellman and Casey Garvin, who are great sort of hunky leading men type. It's a really strong assortment of people. And Susan Stroman, who did the producers, is directing it. So, if everything comes together, which is always a big if, then it should be a lot of fun.
I watched Smash when it was on television, but I think it was for people who loved musical theater. And I think this is going to have to get over that hurdle as well.
Oh, you mean in terms of a commercial proposition?
Yeah, because it is a musical about people making a musical filled with people who usually make musicals. So you've really got to find a way. I think they've got to find a way to open the door and get in people. I mean, I like musicals, and I sometimes enjoyed Smash when it was on TV. And I'm hoping to enjoy it here. But right now, it seems to me that its target is, it's really narrow casting.
Well, you brought up a good point, which is the fact that people that make musicals and are in this business love making musicals about people making musicals. We're just that narcissistic.
But it's also a really
And
good,
another one.
it's a really good
another-
excuse to have big musical numbers on stage. The best part, I think, by general consensus, the most successful part of the show, of this TV series, was the score by Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman, and they're keeping those songs and adding some. But those songs, which were universally kind of respected and admired and enjoyed, are going to be the core of the show.
Well-
Well, Let Me Be Your Star.
Yes, we'll definitely hear that, I'm sure.
I'm what you've been needing. That's the sound of my heart bleeding. Let me be your star. Your star. Won't you be our star?
Probably multiple
Certainly
times.
another show that is about show business is Just in Time, the Bobby Darin musical starring Jonathan Groff as Bobby Darin, hot on his Tony win for Merrily We Roll Along. Got hope for this, Jan? Are you a Bobby Darin fan? Does anybody under 50 remember Bobby Darin?
I guess for me, the issue is why Bobby Darin? What's the Bobby Darin narrative? What's the story that kind of draws you in? On the other hand, we've got Jonathan Groff, and he just is, I don't know, there's just something about him. And he has enough, I think, of a high profile that goes beyond the Broadway communities. So people, I think, will be drawn in. Alex Timbers can be an interesting director. And we haven't seen Warren Leight write anything for the stage for a while.
Yeah.
And so he's been doing Law and Order.
Well, the
So
songs
it'll
will-
be interesting to have him back.
Again, they're going to turn it into a nightclub, like probably Buena Vista Social Club the theater will be turned into
Or
a
like Lady
nightclub for
Day,
these
or
numbers.
like Lady Day,
Day
which
at
was at the
Emerson
same theater
Place.
at the
Right.
Emerson Bar and Grill, which Audra McDonald did very well in. This one looks to be looks to have more people on stage. At least the cast seemed larger than Lady Day did. You know, it's got a supporting characters, so it seems to have more of a plot. My feeling is that this is going for. You ask why Bobby Darin. I think why Bobby Darin is the same question as why the Four Seasons in Jersey Boys. This has a kind of a retro, nostalgia, cool factor.
Early boomer.
Yeah,
Early boomer.
it appeals to a straight audience, a straight male audience in a way that not all biomusicals necessarily do. I think Bobby Darin, to the extent that he still registers as a cultural figure, has a kind of 50s
Except
easygoing-
Jersey Boys had a story.
Yeah,
I mean, it really had a story.
right. But I mean,
We'll see if Warren Light gives this a story. It probably will.
Sure.
But we'll see. Anyway, going on to Real Women Have Curves. Again, this was done at ART. I don't know if anybody saw it, but this is a passion project for Sergio Trujillo, who directs and choreographs it. It is, I think, based on a play and then a subsequent film about women in East Los Angeles who are in a dressmaking factory.
Tomorrow you come to work with us in the factory.
What? No way.
Are you going to be working here full time?
I'm just helping out my sister until I find a better job.
I'm just working here until I win the lottery. It's a size 7. You'll never fit into that one. It's because I love you that I make your life so miserable.
And deals with very timely undocumented workers, the challenge of mother-daughter relationships as well. And I think with Sergio Trujillo behind it, it should be like Buena Vista Social Club, a hot night of Latino music.
One of the things I think is interesting is that these musicals are all very different. And so the definition of what a Broadway musical is being expanded. And this seems as though it could be, a little more traditional because there's a narrative, the conflict between the mother and the daughter, but then there's the music, then there's maybe the political subtext. So there seems as though there could be a lot for people to grab onto.
Jackson, what would you grab onto here?
I mean, I'm very curious how the songs, how the music will function. Having seen the film, which was such a breakout moment for America Ferrera, it's a very much a sort of small indie realist movie about sort of what this woman's life, what her relationship with her mother is like, what this world is, and I'm curious how, I'm not having seen it, sort of what, is it going to be fantasies? Is it going to be sort of reality? How are they going to, what use is the music in expressing how she is going through this sort of coming of age story? And if it works great, and it sort of is such a great role, and there's great bones in the piece, but I'm curious sort of what has inspired the thought of this should be a musical rather than just a play.
A late entry to the season is Dead Outlaw, which I think we all saw at Audible.
And I can finally be excited about.
Yay! Great!
Your mama's dead, your daddy's dead, your brother's dead, and so are you. Abe Lincoln's dead, Frank James dead, your mama's dead, and so are you, and so are you.
I mean, it is the fascinating story. It does bring back the team that created Band's Visit, the Davids, David Yazbek and David Cromer.
And Itamar Moses.
And the book writer, Itamar Moses, as well as Eric De La Pena, who co-wrote the music with David Yazbek. It is this fascinating story, talking about dead people, like Operation Mincemeat. Elmer McCurdy, who was shot by a posse in 1911, an inept and hapless bank robber, became more famous as a corpse for the next 6 decades, as a sideshow and wax museum attraction, and this is a pure Americana. So what gets you excited about this one, Jan?
It was just such fun. When I went in to see it, it was down at the Minetta Theater, which is operated mainly by Audible.
Yes.
Now, and it was really a show about a dead guy, and it was lively. It was fun. The music was really captivating, and there were a lot of messages about our obsession with crime, and about the fact, as one of the lyrics said, we're all going to be dead too.
Yes, obsession with our mortality and obsession with fame and the hucksterism that has always run through America and which is especially prevalent right now in our politics and in our culture. Jackson, did you love this?
Yeah, I loved it too. It was I mean, and it was staged very cleverly by David Cromer, where it started out with the band on stage and sort of this platform. And initially, you're sort of like, it was being produced by Audible as well, so you were like, oh, is this going to be static? Is this just going to be sort of a Prairie Home Companion radio play? And then it sort of starts to move, and as the story builds, you're drawn into this whole world. And the sort of first half is mostly Andrew Duran's character's life story, and then as the corpse travels around the country, you meet all these hucksters and strivers and other characters, and there's wonderful moments for the cast that are all coming back for the Broadway production. Tom Sesma, as a mortician, has this solo about everything you can learn from a corpse, and it's wonderful and wild and hilarious, and just you're like, I can't wait to see that again.
So glad you brought up Andrew Duran, who was so great and shocked and is terrific in this and often has to just be there still
Well, for
in a
the
coffin.
whole second half of the show, you talk about static. I mean, his performance. I mean, even as the show gets less and less static, it gets bigger and more wilder and more varied. He is there in the middle of it for the whole second half of the show, just stock still, like a wax figure, like a mummy. It's an astonishing technical performance. Like you can barely catch him blinking.
And it's magnetizing. Your eye still goes to him.
Exactly.
We've got such little time to get to the 3 musical revivals, which will join 3 other musical revivals. So we're going to move through these very quickly.
Okay.
Starting with the last 5 years, which is Jason Robert Brown's off-Broadway musical, was semi-autobiographical about his own marriage.
So it's about ex-lovers, but it's structured like an ex. So his story goes forward, her story goes back. They meet in the middle. The only time that they sing together really is in the wedding scene at that connection point, and otherwise it's a series of alternating solo songs. It's very popular with musical theater people. You hear it a lot in piano bars. I love the score of this show. I will admit that I am somewhat surprised by the casting in this show, which Nick Jonas as
Jamie Hellerstein
and Adrienne Warren
as Kathy Hyatt.
As Kathy. I'm curious to see how Nick Jonas is. The part is this very neurotic, intellectual Jewish writer, and that's not necessarily what I associate with Nick Jonas, but I mean, that's not to say he can't do it. I'm just curious to see what he will do.
It is a gorgeous score. I totally agree with you. And talking about dead people who become famous, at least because they've died, Floyd Collins, Adam Gettles. What's that?
Spoiler.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, he's dead by now.
Based on an event that happened literally 100 years ago.
But, you know.
Yes, 1925.
Yeah.
It is a
Literally.
1925 event that became a national
he were still alive
sensation
today, it would
when this cave explorer, Floyd Collins, in Kentucky, ended up being trapped in it, and it became a national story because radio was still relatively in its infancy at the time. A lot of theater nerds favorite musicals that we're now going to see. Had you seen it, Jan?
I had not. It had a very brief run.
Yes, that's true.
It had a very brief run, I think maybe like 2 weeks or something like that. This is one of the shows I'm most excited about seeing.
There we go. Ding, ding, ding.
I really want to see this. Tina Landau is also directing this. Very busy lady. And Adam Gettle, some people really clock into his music and some people don't. For some reason, I really clock into his music. I loved The Light in the Piazza. I liked The Days of Wine and Roses, and a lot of people did not. And this, I think, was his first big calling card show, and it's got a great cast. Jeremy Jordan has left The Great Gatsby to do it. I can hardly wait to see this one.
And the third revival of this season is Pirates, the Penzance. It's in the public domain, so I guess they could change the title if they want to. It's Gilbert and Sullivan, of course, which is not a lot of people's favorite musical composers. But what's fascinating is that this is like the 25th Broadway revival of Pirates of Penzance. So it's certainly the most popular Gilbert and Sullivan musical for Americans. Why do you think that is?
It's got a banger score. It's got so many, it really does. I mean, it's song after song that you somehow have heard before, even though you're not exactly sure where. You know, this is actually going to be a quite radical reimagination, as far as I understand, of the show.
Yes.
Rupert Holmes, who wrote The Mystery of Edwin Drood and Escape, the Pina Colada song.
Yes, I like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain.
Is doing a rewrite of this. It's not set in Great Britain anymore. It's going to be set in the Caribbean, and it's
New Orleans.
I'm sorry, New Orleans. It's going to be set in New Orleans and given a whole jazz spin. So it's going to be reorchestrated significantly, and it has a really good cast. David Hyde Pierce, it seems like the absolute ideal person to do the
Major
General,
Modern
who has that big tongue-twisting patter song, and Jinx Monsoon is playing the slatternly Pirates maid Ruth, who will be terrific, and Ramin Karimloo is playing the Pirate King, and he's very suitably swashbuckling type. So, you know, it's promising. And again, it's a really fun show.
Directed by Scott Ellis.
And directed by Scott Ellis.
At the Roundabout. Jackson, you get the final word on this go-round.
Well, I'm just very excited to see Jinx Monsoon in it. I mean, she's so fantastic and was in Little Shop and has sort of been doing more. RuPaul's Drag Race one season has been sort of a regular there, but Two seasons, yeah. So, and sort of to transition into more and more musical theater, it's going to be great. Ruth is such a good part for her.
And who sings Poor Wandering One? Poor
Mabel,
Wandering One.
I
think that's
this is a
Samantha Williams plays
Samantha
Mabel.
Williams, yeah. And Nicholas Parrish is playing the lead, the boy who it turns out is not turning 21. And he's also a delightful performer.
Well, that was a Broadway speed dating on steroids. Now we're going to take a short break. When we return, we'll look at the roster of dramas and comedies opening right up to the Tony Award nominating deadline on April 27th. I'm back with critics Adam Feldman and Jackson McHenry and journalist Jan Simpson. We've got 6 new plays to open to join the 9 that opened in fall for a total of 15, which is actually one more than the 14 musicals that are part of the season, and many by Americans as well, and one by an Iranian American, Sanaz Tusi. English kicks us off.
I love this play. I loved it a couple of years ago when it was at the Atlantic. I loved it here again. It won the Pulitzer Prize a couple of years ago. It's the same production, it's the same cast, it's the same director. I was really happy to see it again. I find it very moving. It's a depiction of an English as a second language, as a foreign language class. The class is held in Iran. It's given to us in the English language, so it has an interesting device where we can hear them in English the entire time, but sometimes they're speaking to each other in English, sometimes they're speaking to each other in Farsi, and when they're speaking to each other in Farsi, their English to our ears is natural American, very fast, easy English, and when they're speaking in English, it is chopped up and second languagey.
Every day in here, I feel like idiot. And I am not idiot.
I am not an idiot. When you speak another language, my God, you feel so loud all the time. You go years without making anyone laugh. No one has any idea that you're adventurous or optimistic or that you're kind.
I know what I sound like. I hear my voice too, but I am hearing myself.
One day, you will be far away from here. I wonder who I will speak with then.
So for me, this works in a lot of ways. It's very engaging, and it also keeps you as an audience member on your feet, listening carefully to how people sound differently to themselves and to others.
It's directed by Knud Adams. Jackson, if you were recommending it to a friend, what would you recommend about it?
Well, I think it's Knud's direction. You have to sink into the kind of naturalism and then realize all of the sort of undercurrents of some are thrilled to be have an opportunity to try to leave the country. Others are very resistant to learning a new language and very sort of resentful of the sort of imperialist idea that you have to learn English to leave and have to find better opportunities. And the way in which those subtleties come out in between the sort of mundanity of what you're doing in an English class becomes very moving as it goes along, and but it takes, you have to sort of sink into its wavelength in a second, and I think it does that effectively. But
Jan, do you think that it telegraphs or says anything about the oppressiveness of English to the third world?
I think it's all about language and culture. And there's some people in this class who, yes, see it as oppressive, but there are others who see it as an opportunity, a way to enter a different part of the world. And at the same time, that device of they're speaking in a flowing way when they're speaking in Farsi is a reminder to us, because most of us hear people who come from the Middle East, we hear their accents. And that's the way we perceive them. And they're sort of halting, they're thinking through their language. And this is a reminder that these people can be as irreverent, as profane, as the rest of us. And it was just a fun and moving look into this culture that at least I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, and picking up on that, it's not just about people from the Middle East. It's any immigrant, any second language speaker that you encounter. It's a reminder, and I think a useful one, I certainly could use the reminder all the time, that when you're talking to someone whose first language is not English, they're unable to express themselves as fully as people because they're looking for words. They can't be as emotional, as funny, as candid, as easy.
Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, who won the Tony Award for Appropriate, and that was a real stem winder of a play. So is the new one, Purpose. It's loosely based on Jesse Jackson Jr., actually, and the family of Jesse Jackson, the civil rights activist whose son later became a congressman from Illinois and who was involved in a scandal, as was his wife. And the Jasper family takes a lot of these points in history and repurposes it in this play. So this is one I'm really looking forward to. What do you think, Dan?
Me too. It's maybe number one or number two on the list of things I'm most looking forward to seeing. Brandon is always interesting as a playwright. The cast is a killer cast. Everyone in this cast is just terrific. We've got LaTanya Richardson Jackson, Harry Lennox
as the matriarch of the family.
Right. Harry Lennox as the father of the Jesse Jackson figure, John Michael Hill, Glenn Davis, Kara Young. It's a really terrific cast. It's being directed by Felicia Rashad, who has done directing before, herself a Tony-winning actor. What's going to be interesting to me is to see the last play. Brandon is a Black playwright. Appropriate was about a dysfunctional white family, and that play went over very well. I'm going to be interested to see if a play about a dysfunctional Black family is received in the same way.
I'm sure that it will be no holds barred because that's just his style. I think he's going to be unafraid to
without
go
a doubt.
anywhere.
I'm not doubting him. I'm wondering about the audience.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it plays.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's one of the things. I'm very much looking forward to seeing this show. You know, BJJ's An Octoroon some years ago is one of my favorite plays of the 21st century. It's just a spellbinding, eye-opening show. But I think both of those previous shows that he's best known for, Appropriate and Octoroon, are in some way about having an outsider Black perspective on a white story. And so I'm very interested to see what an inside Black story, his perspective on an inside Black story will be.
Jackson, have you been a fan of his work?
Yeah,
since?
and I'm also, I mean, I just saw last winter he did a sort of valedictory piece at the Soho Rep that was very experimental. Give me Carmelita Tropicana. He's a character in it. It's about his relationship with this performance artist, Carmelita Tropicana. And so to go from that, go between the sort of Steppenwolf production of Purpose and that, and to go back, he's someone who goes between sort of like, this feels much more of a realist meat and potatoes family drama, and he's done much wilder sort of experimental things, but those types of work inform each other, and I'm curious to see what he's done with Purpose and what he's doing in sort of the vein of like, okay, we're getting a family together, we're going to look at that in sort of much more appropriate vein, that I'm sort of curious.
On your trips to London, did you happen to see the picture of Dorian Gray?
I
by
haven't,
any
no.
chance?
If only I could remain always young, and the picture could grow old. For that, I would give everything. I would give my soul for that. I would give my soul for that.
It is starring Sarah Snook, who was so good as Shiv Roy in Succession. Here she's a one person playing a huge number of different characters in The Picture of Dorian Gray, the Oscar Wilde classic.
And it got good reviews in London. You know, it's fun to see all the succession of actors from Succession coming to Broadway. Kieran Culkin is also going to be on Broadway this year. Jeremy Strong was last year. We also had Peter Friedman again, and David Rayfield. You know, they're all theater actors to begin with, or most of them. So they're just, you know, it's not like they're colonizing. But I think that she's very smartly doesn't want to be pegged into only being Shiv Roy, and one good way to do that is by playing 24 characters in an hour and a half. And this show is written and directed by Kip Williams, so it's an adaptation of the Oscar Wilde. From what I've seen from the photos, quite spectacularly designed. And
Because
so,
she interacts with pre-recorded video of those characters. It certainly fits into the theme of staying young, like death becomes her. That's part of the season as well. What do you think, Jan?
I'm interested in this one too, primarily because of the staging. This whole idea of using cameras and video and tape, we're seeing more and more of it. And sometimes it works very well, as I think it did in maybe Happy Ending, the musical that opened in the fall. I know that we all love. Wonderful show. And sometimes it doesn't, and I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with it here.
Well, certainly one of the hottest tickets on Broadway will be Good Night and Good Luck, which is obviously the stage adaptation of the film that was very popular and brings George Clooney making his Broadway debut, I believe. I think we all saw the film. What do you think will be important in terms of a transfer, a transfer
David
from
Cromer. I think George Clooney, who is a very smart person, was very smart to get David Cromer as his director. Clooney is playing the Edward R. Murrow character in this story of Murrow's going up against Joseph McCarthy. In the movie, he played Murrow's producer, Fred Friendly. David Strathairn played the Ed Murrow character, and now he's moving into the main role.
And what matters? Honesty, facts, integrity, accuracy, truth. Good night and good luck.
Really interested to see this. A little worried about the fact that it's going to be in such a large house. It's a big story, but it's an intimate drama. But on the other hand, a lot of people want to see George Clooney, so it will probably fill up that.
It's co-written by Clooney and Grant Heslop, who wrote the screenplay, and it couldn't be more timely in terms of hysteria surrounding censorship and everything else, and fear that moved through
media,
the government.
Courage or complicity.
Exactly.
You know, it's very timely.
And cowardice. So it couldn't come at a better time. Speaking of, of hysteria, there's a fascinating new play called John Proctor is the Villain. And as we recall from the Arthur Miller play, The Crucible, he was anything but the villain. He was sort of the hero. The playwright, who is Kimberly Bellflower, makes him a villain.
This is part of a series of plays that we've had that are looking at Arthur Miller in particular as sort of emblematic of mid-century white male playwrights. We had Sarah Ruhl's Becky Nurse. We had a play that Bedlam Company did a couple of years ago, The Good John Proctor. They're all challenging the idea of, this is, the story of the Salem witch trials, and in Miller's telling of it, the young woman who starts off the accusations of witches, Abigail Williams, was also a teen temptress who tempts John Proctor, and that sets off, and her lust and love for him sets all of this off. What all of these plays are saying is Abigail Williams in real life was an 11-year-old girl. And what we're doing is we're taking these stories back. We're no longer looking through the male gaze. We're looking at it in the way that women are now telling the story. And at the same time, this version takes place in a classroom of young women who are studying the play, and at the same time are dealing with their issues issues of sexual harassment and sexual oppression.
And it's a comedy.
Yes,
yes. Is it a comedy?
Yes.
It is.
It is?
And this is my second play that I'm most looking forward to on Broadway this season.
Given that description by Jan Jackson, how do you think it might affect how we see The Crucible?
Well, I mean, I'm curious to see how it's sort of sending up the paternalism of Arthur Miller and Danya Tamor, who's directed The Outsiders and Heroes of the Fourth Turning, is a very up-and-coming director, has done a lot of interesting stuff, and she has Sadie Sink, who's coming to us from Stranger Things, from television, coming in here.
You mentioned Stranger Things, which of course is on its way to Broadway after being an extraordinarily popular television series on Netflix. Netflix is producing this on Broadway.
It's not real.
And it was a tremendous hit in London.
Still is.
What do you hope for in this production, Adam?
I'm very much looking forward to this. I've heard very good things about it. It's a prequel to the TV series that we see. So it's set decades earlier, and it gives us younger versions of some of the characters that we have gotten to know in their 1980s.
Still in the small town of
Yes.
Hawkins.
So I think very much it's in the vein of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. They got Jack Thorne, who did Harry Potter, to write the script here, to co-write the story, rather. The Duffer Brothers, who created the TV series, are also involved in creating the story like J.K. Rowling was, and a story writer, a consistent script writer for the show, Kate. Again, the staging, and this is another big, spectacular London production, like Harry Potter, the staging is supposedly really spectacular. And Lewis McCartney, who starred in it in London and got very good notices, is reprising his role here, along with some of the other cast. So it'll be interesting to see what the fuss has been about.
Yeah, we'll see if it has the same legs as Harry Potter, in terms of having that kind of a pedigree where a lot of people are very, very familiar with it. And it'll be interesting to see how they accommodate people's expectations when you come in with something that is so well known. There are 2 revivals, 2 new ones joining the previous 3 from last fall. And there is Othello, talking about star power and Broadway box office, because it'll be Kenny Leon directing, Denzel Washington, of course, as Othello, and Jake Gyllenhaal as Iago, and Molly Osborne as Desdemona. It's Denzel Washington again making his commitment to the theater, even though he's become this enormously popular film star, and also again doing Shakespeare as he did with Julius Caesar playing Brutus. What do you think, Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw Denzel Washington having a great time being the villain in Gladiator 2, and it's exciting to have him come to the stage like so many Hollywood people are doing at this moment, because partially there's not a lot of work in Hollywood. But so I'm curious to see, Kenny Leon has sort of become the go-to director for having stars come into revivals. He's done Our Town last fall. It's sort of curious to see Denzel, even in interviews, is so enthusiastic about doing Shakespeare. He'll just start quoting it off the cuff.
Well, he's done it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done it throughout his career, and he did it on Broadway in Julius Caesar. He's very much into the. I mean, I would love to see Denzel Washington do a new play, but at the same time, I'm also, very excited to see him do Othello. And Othello, of the big four Shakespeare tragedies, is actually kind of the least often performed.
I think the problem that people have had is because at one point it was performed by white actors in blackface. That's just not done anymore. It is now a play that major black actors do, although there was a production that I would have given anything to see that Patrick Stewart did a few years ago, where he was the only white person in the cast and everyone else was black. And so he just reversed the racial dynamics because he really wanted to play the role of Othello. I've seen NT Live productions of it, and it works. It's a fast-moving play. It's easy to understand the dynamics of the play. It sucks you in right to the end. You're going, don't strangle her.
Talking about it moving like a runaway freight train brings us to the last part of our discussion, and that is Glengarry Glen Ross, one of the most popular of David Mamet's plays, which deals with these rather, what shall we say, immoral real estate salesman. It was a 1984 play that was then made into a 1992 film.
And a Pulitzer Prize winner.
And was a Pulitzer Prize winner as well. It's a revival directed by Patrick Marber and an all-star cast.
Well, it brings us our second Roy sibling of the spring, Kieran Culkin, who will probably win an Oscar very soon for his performance in A Real Pain, and then Bob Odenkirk of Better Call Saul and lots of television and sketch comedy, and then Bill Burr, who's sort of best known as a comedian, as well as Michael McKean, Don Weber Jr. And so, but it's the sort of three guys, or the big sort of marquee stars, and it is a real sort of men being aggro men, all on, full force thing that I think will be interesting to stage now in the context of David Mamet's sort of somewhat going off the deep end politically himself, but it's as a piece it holds up, and I think there's a lot you can do with it and a lot you can investigate in masculinity and staging it.
But it's also an immensely popular play. It's really become Mamet's standard. This is the third revival in the 21st century. It's like to straight men what Gypsy is to gay men. It's you just want to see it over and over with different casts. And I certainly can't complain about seeing Bob Odenkirk and Kieran Culkin and Bill Burr in there.
Kieran Culkin is going to be playing the sort of the real bastard in the play.
The Al Pacino part of the movie.
Roma,
Yes.
that Al Pacino played in the film. I think that it certainly is, given that it's so Darwinian, perfect for the times in terms of might makes right, in terms of all the dark id.
Yes, but it's also a critique of those things. It's not Mamet writing this play today. I don't know how he would write it, but the Mamet who was writing it then sort of had a different outlook on the world. So at the same time as it is a very enjoyable depiction of the dog-eat-dog masculinity capitalism world, it also functions, I think, pretty effectively as a critique of that world. It's not. It has both of those things going on in it. So it is a very effective play.
Well, with that, I'll say good night and good luck. And also, thank you so much for taking us through this smorgasbord of delight.
That's a good word, too. That's a good word.
And thank you for joining us. We look forward to bringing you more fascinating conversations with creative artists who live only to astonish us. Be sure to download the new CUNY TV app to watch all our shows, also available on YouTube. I'm Patrick Pacheco.